Welcome to the Think Generational Wealth podcast, episode number 38. And I'm your host, Amir Estimo. In today's episode, this is part of a three-part series where I'm talking about your why. And today's episode title is called Why You Must Know Your Why When It Comes to Building Generational Wealth, Part 2. And the reason I chose this topic to talk about was because we just closed out the quarter one of the new year 2021. Can't believe we've already went through 3 months already of the new year. Feels like yesterday, right? And in this episode, I talked about last week your what. What is your why, right? And this week, I'm talking more so about how you've defined your why. Now, before I get into the episode, do me a favor. Go on Apple, wherever you get your podcasts, subscribe and share the podcast. Also, leave a review. It's only going to help me get better, folks. And this helps also so other people can find the content. So if you really enjoy this content, subscribe to the podcast. My goal is to drop a new episode every single Friday. So, again, help me out, leave a review, subscribe to the podcast, and share it. Share this message we're on. This message, this mission when it comes to building generational wealth. The goal, folks, is really so that when we each depart, because eventually we're all going to depart from this planet, it's just a matter of when it happens, is that we understand the importance of generational wealth. Now, to some may feel like it's not important. To some, it is because you want to be able to carry that legacy. For me, not coming from a rich family and where I was born to two immigrant parents who came here and all they knew was to work, they didn't know anything else. And you growing up, that's all they instilled in you was to get up, work, go off to college and make something of yourself, be better, right? But I knew for me is I knew when I went to college, I knew what my why I did it, but I didn't really I think that's why too I didn't get through college because I didn't know I didn't define my why. So to me it was if you ask me why I went to college, I say, well, I went to college because I wanted to make more money, right? Or I wanted to get an education. Those are true. But if you ask me, did I ever define my why? How did I define my why? I would tell you, no, I never did that. So to me, when the going got tough, I only knew one thing was to get away, to leave, to quit. And the reason I'm saying this is now that I'm starting my own businesses and I had to take a different approach. And that approach was more so of, okay, I know why I'm doing this, but did I ever define it? Did I ever say, how did I come to this point and say, this is my why? This is how I defined my why. And I defined my why, X, Y, Z, A, B, C, however you want to go about it, etc. And to me was the difference now is I understand now how did I define my why? Maybe it was a certain scenario. Maybe some people they're given a second chance, so they able to say, okay, you know what? Maybe you had a disease you was battling and you beat it, so now I can now define my why to get to the point where I know what is my why, right? So those are two different things, folks. Now, when it comes to generational wealth, you have to think in a sense, why are you doing what you're doing? And how did you come to that point? Is it because you have kids and you want to be able to leave something for them? So that's how you say, okay, you know what? I have to define my why. A lot of people don't, I don't think a lot of people may know and say what their why is, but I don't think they defined it. Because when you don't define your why, I don't know if it's as meaningful to you if you did. Okay. So when you define it and you're just not, well, my why is this, versus if you really thought about it and you really took the time and defined your why and wrote it down and looked at it, visualized it, put it out to the universe and tell the universe, this is why I'm doing what I'm doing, then it's not the same, because when the going gets tough, you're gonna do what? Run away. You're gonna quit. And that's what I did when I went off to college. And I realized I can't carry this same habit again. So this time I have to really define my why. Well, my why is I want to be able to uplift kids in third world countries that don't have the opportunity that I have here in the US. Because there's a lot of kids out there that I know that are very talented, but because they don't have the resources that we have, that's an advantage here in the US, they don't have those type of resources. It's harder for them, because if you think about it, some of these kids, especially in these like Africa and Haiti and all these other places, they have to they have to be so, if you have parents, your parents are waking up early. Your typical days, your parents are waking up early. You're waking up sometimes 5 o'clock in the morning. God forbid, tell a kid in the US to wake up that early, and they won't do it. Then they have to make sure there's food, there's cooking. These kids are learning how to do things at such an early age. That's why when you take immigrants that they come here into US, they know nothing but to work hard, because that's what they've been doing their whole life. And if you ask my dad, who came here in the US in 1981, he would tell you the reason why he came here is because he came here and he wanted a better life. But if you tell him how he defined his why, my dad would tell you he defined his why because he wanted to do something different for his life, but also bring his family, bring some of his members here in his family, be the first person in his family here to help other family members come to this country. So he had to define his why that way. To the point now where I have two of my uncles, and one of my uncles, they have all their kids here. The other one, same thing, has all his kids, and we're a big family. We've grown, and now they have grandkids and et cetera, et cetera. So you have to, folks, define why you're doing what you're doing. So that's something I shared with you that I find interesting, because now we can come together, our generation can come together and pass the message to the next generation and bring the next generation along. And when it comes to that generational wealth, when you're building generational wealth, you have to understand why you're doing what you're doing and how did you define it. If you never defined your why, it's very hard for you to know what you're doing. You may say, I know what my why is. Yes, you do. But when the going gets tough, because you didn't define your why and you didn't make it personable for you, you're going to quit. I'll give you an example of some companies, right? Who, I'll give you a quick example here. Google. I saw this on Google. It says, beyond serving to tell you what kind of goals and tasks you should be pursuing in the first place, knowing why you're doing work serves two fundamentally important efficiency related purposes as well. It motivates you and it orients you, it means keeps you focused. Now, these are some companies, big companies actually, that has defined their why. This is the why they're doing what they're doing, right? Number one, Apple. We aim to challenge the status quo. We aim to think differently. Number two, Airbnb, to connect millions of people in the real world all over the world through a community marketplace so that you can belong anywhere. Number three, to empower every person and every organization on the planet to achieve more, Microsoft. Number four, to organize the world's information and make it universally accessible to and useful. Google. So, folks, if these big companies are defining why not you? Now, you December 31st, 2020 may have wrote your goals down, maybe you wrote it earlier than that. Are you reviewing your goals? Are you going over what progress have you made when it comes to your goals? What progress have you? Have you looked at them? Or did you just wrote your goals down and say, okay, this is it, and then bam, maybe revisit it before the year ends? I think that's a recipe for disaster because it doesn't keep you focused. And I think that's the biggest thing is when you know your goals and you know what you're doing and why you're doing it and how did you define it, you are more or less likely to not quit when the going gets tough. Generational wealth, to me, it may be different for you. Your why is different to me. I can't have your why, you can't have mine. Because they're two. You may have a why to do what you're doing and it have a completely different reason from me. And that we should be okay with that. We should be. Sometimes I think that we don't realize that when it comes to these things like building generational wealth, it takes a collective effort. Have you shared your wife with you? Had you shared your why with your wife, kids? Do they know? Do they know why you're doing what you're doing? Do they? So I leave you with this. And the big thing is that to understand, to define why you're doing what you're doing. Again, these big companies have defined their why. They know what it is. Do you? And if you don't, take some time to define that why. Because once you do the effort and time you put into that, because it's something that you believe in, it will manifest even greater and it will be of more personable to you. So thank you if you listen through this podcast through. I appreciate you taking the time to listen to this podcast. I know you could be doing anything in the world, but the fact that you're taking the time to listen to this podcast is much appreciated. I trust me, I appreciate everything you guys do. I appreciate the people that do listen to this podcast. Podcasting, I know there's all sorts of podcasts out there, but if you're taking the time to listen to this one, I hope to bring value to you, and I hope that you can take something out what I'm saying and then move into action. Okay. So, till next week, what should everybody be doing? Thinking generational wealth. All right. Thank you very much. Love you guys. Until next week.
Mr. Alex Productions.